Hello and welcome. This is Katie. Thanks so much for stopping by. I am back with another project for Maker Forte, and today we're pulling out the metallic watercolor paints and we're going to create a really bold, shimmery holiday card. So I'm going to use the Holly Berry stamp set from Maker Forte. I've got some black watercolor paper. This is cold pressed, so it's got a bit of a texture to it, but it stamps up pretty nice. I've got some Art Philosophy by Prima metallic accents watercolors, and if you have fine text or any other metallic watercolors, you can use those. That'll be fine. And I'm treating my panel, which measures 4 by 5 1/4 watercolor paper, with an anti-static powder. So that powder is just kaolin clay powder. You don't need a fancy brush. You do need a brush that's dedicated for that powder, but it doesn't need to be in any fancy applicator or anything. The key is the powder, kaolin clay powder. I'll link some up down below, but it is the best for your anti-static powder needs for embossing. So using some clear embossing ink, and I'm going to pull out my Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder. Now I have a bunch of different embossing powders. Some of them I buy because I want to test them out and see what they'll look like, and see if I like one over the other. You know, that's part of crafting, right? But they do go bad. So I have a couple that don't emboss that great. So now I'm kind of dipping into the other stuff because I need to use it. So I definitely don't recommend stocking up on embossing powders. Get what you need, use it, and then replace. And if you're struggling with your embossing, you know, maybe it's super flat, it's not raised, it kind of looks like it absorbs into the cardstock or something, just get a new jar and try that, because chances are your embossing powder's gone bad. And I'll be honest, I don't know why it does. I'm in a bedroom, essentially. We have a finished room over the garage, and that's where my space is. And so it is climate controlled. So I don't know what causes it. I just know that it happens. So we're heat setting till smooth and melted, and you can see how it's changing there, and it's nice and shiny. And you could absolutely not color this in. I think it looks pretty cool, just black and gold like that. This particular stamp within that Holly Berry stamp set is pretty detailed, and so you could get away with just this, right? But I thought we'd add some metallic colors in there, and I'm showing you a couple different brushes that you could use if you have them on hand. Now I'm starting with this round number 2 watercolor brush, but I end up going with the black one that you see there. Now the black one, and I did show that, but it was quick, is a 10/0. It's just a fine detail brush. I picked it up in a pack at Walmart. I want to say that it's the Folk Art brand. So nothing fancy here, but the detail for this particular stamp is important because we already have all that detail within the stamp that you can see there in the gold. So there's not much space to paint. If you have too big of a paintbrush, it's gonna be kind of splotchy, and you're not going to be able to give a little bit more definition. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using it like a pen or a pencil, and I'm flicking, or even your alcohol markers, I'm flicking that paint on there, and I'm not filling it in all the way. I do want to keep some of that black in there, the black watercolor paper. But if you've got too big of a brush, you're not going to be able to have that control. So I definitely recommend a small detail paintbrush for these types of stamps. And that goes for any stamp that has the detail already created within the stamp. It'll just make it a lot easier for your coloring. So once I get all of this filled in, and I do want to point out too, your metallic watercolor paints will separate. So when you start off, add a few drops of water into the paint color, let it sit for a minute, mix it around, get that color blending till it's nice and creamy. And then, as you can see, as I keep dipping my brush in, I swirl it around a little bit just to keep it mixed. Now it is a detail brush, so there's not many bristles. You're going to have to dip repeatedly, but this goes by pretty quick. This didn't take me that long. But just make sure you keep blending, and mixing your metallic paints so that you know, you have a consistent color, because the paint and the water will separate as you let it sit there. So once I get all this filled in, I will, up at the top there, you see two golds, one on the left and one on the right. I'm going to take the color that's on the right. It's a darker, deeper gold, and I will fill in the, I'm going to call it veining, you know, the separation, you know, between the leaves, the two sides of the leaves, and then also the branch, you know, that leads up to your leaves, your stem. You don't have to do that. It looked okay without it, but sometimes when I'm painting, I'm experimenting too, so I can see what something will look like. Because if I want to repeat this card, I did only make one, but if I want to make it again, I'll know, did I like it? Did I not like it? And I'll decide if I want to add it again. So once I get that all filled in, I am going to come in with some Nuvo Crystal Drops in Autumn Red and fill in for the berries. I wanted a bit of dimension. But if you don't have these, you could always use a red metallic paint. Like I could use that one there that's on the top right at the very end and use that for the berries, the red berries. And then take in some crystal glaze or glossy accents and, you know, put that over the top, and that would give it a bit of dimension as well. So now I'm going to do some splattering. I've got a fan brush, and I've added a little bit more water to the paints that I want to use, and dipping in the each of the colors. Now in between each color, I do clean it off. I have a glass of water that's up there on the top of the screen, and clean off the brush and then dip into the next color and do my splattering. Now on the berries, I did take a little dab of gold paint and put it on top of the berries that you can see there. Don't have to do that if you don't want to. But I think the splatter just enhanced the card a little bit more. This red cardstock I'm using is a metallic red cardstock. And I'm showing you there that I use my Misty hinge to line up that wider strip of red cardstock so that I can create my sentiment strip. And the Season's Greeting comes from the Holly Berry stamp set. So everything here was used with one stamp set. And of course, I popped up the sentiment strip with some foam squares and added a little liquid glue to give me some wiggle room. But I just love how this turned out. I love all the shimmer. It's great for the holiday season, and I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Be sure and check the description box below and follow us over on Maker Forte's Facebook group called The Crafter Party, and share what you guys are making. We love to see what you guys are doing. And that's going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next video.